It started out simple enough. I was bored. That was it really. Bored and just browsing social media when I saw it. It was an indescribable piece of art, stunning really, posted by one of my friends, someone who I knew had never picked up a paintbrush in their lives. So I wanted to know the artist, except in their description, they mentioned that it was generated by AI. I don't want any of you stumbling onto the site in case something happens to you like it did with me, but let's just say that I fell for it and decided to visit the site myself. I wanted a profile pic. It was supposed to be a drawing of a dog near a bunch of sunflowers. That's how I thought of it. But it was kind of hard to get an actual artist to draw it, especially when you didn't have any money. I tried the AI generator, and though it took a few attempts, I got an image I thought was good enough to use. Fascinated, I tried other things I wanted drawn. Most of them were too bad to be used, but I would occasionally find one that looked pretty good. Then, as I got bored, I had trouble thinking of ideas. I decided to input a prompt that in hindsight, I should never have. Draw a picture of me. If you've never used an AI generating software before, essentially you input a string of text describing what you want to see. Of course, I was just curious to know what the software would spit out when I put that kind of prompt in. There was no way that it knew what I looked like. For an extra kick, I added in, draw a picture of me, manga style. I then hit generate and waited for a mess of pixels to pop up. Instead, I had a bit of trouble initially figuring out what it was that I was looking at. There was a man with his face turned down. He had black hair and he was sitting at a restaurant. It couldn't be any place, or so I didn't think when I saw the sign in the background. A chill went down my spine. I opened up my phone. Yeah, that's right. I had been to that place a week ago. I think I even took a selfie. Yeah, the AI had even got my outfit right. Now, if you've never used an AI to generate images before, you should probably know that in general, it isn't very good at all. At least, not most modern AI. It's usually very easy to tell when something is AI generated. The computer often gets things wrong that no human would, like drawing someone's lips wrong, or giving someone an extra hand. Actually, a large majority of the errors I noticed whenever I put in a command were related to things like that. Actually, it can be quite uncanny if you try to get an AI to make a human face. Some of them were nightmare-inducing, to say the least. It also has problems with letters or making signs, so the odds that it would spell out the restaurant's name like that perfectly were close to zero. But there was no way that it could have known where I was that day. But I had to be sure. There was an option to edit an image you had made. I clicked on it and then changed the prompt. Draw a picture of me as a black and white photograph. I clicked on the generate button once again, and I nearly physically recoiled from the screen. It was perfect. A perfect render of what I look like. I panicked. My laptop had no camera built in, and I never used one, so how did it know what I look like? Did it look through social media? But now, the terms of service said that it wouldn't work with photographs of real people. I probably should have left it at that, turned the computer off, and went to sleep, trying to ignore what had happened like it was a bad dream. But I didn't. I had to go further. A photograph of my car. The AI even got the dent in the rear down to a T. A charcoal drawing of my bedroom. Yup, there was no mistaking it. But how? How was it spying on me? My phone. That was a possibility. But unless I'd been hacked, there should have been no way to... Again, I should have stopped there, turned the computer off and gone to sleep. But I didn't. A crime scene photograph of the day I'll die. My heart froze. It was me lying down with a bullet wound in my chest. My lifeless eyes gazed up at the ceiling. A pool of blood trickled around my corpse. There was a timestamp in the corner. A time that was 30 minutes from now. I wanted to shut it off right then and there, but I couldn't bring myself to. I had to know more. But This couldn't be real, could it? A picture of who's going to kill me. An image of a green car popped up. The driver was hidden in a shadow, but there was a clear license plate on it. I had had enough at that point and turned off the computer. This was a bad dream. Yeah, that's right. This was all it was. I got up to go to bed when I saw it. Outside my window, a car had just come to a stop across the street. Green. I honestly don't know what to do now, guys. I can't see the license plate, but something tells me that it'll be the same as in the picture, and I'm not dumb enough to go out and check. But the clock's still ticking. Just 10 minutes until the time on the photograph. I've already called the cops, but I have a feeling that they won't be here in time. As it is, I don't think they would have taken my complaint seriously if I gave them the full picture. I just told them that there was an armed intruder approaching my house. And now, come to think of it, I can hear footsteps outside. I'm not sure if I should run at this point, and if so, to where? Would it make a difference? Is the photograph some kind of prophecy from the AI? Or now that I knew what was going to happen, could I change things? Sorry, I have to run. Someone's turning my doorknob. Nowhere to run now. I'll just have to try and hide. Wish me luck, guys. A decade ago, my little brother Sam was eaten by the rain. My therapist said that I was traumatized by losing my brother, that I must have hallucinated it or made it up. But I know what happened. 10 years ago, my brother burst in through the door talking a mile a minute, as was typical for him. Hey, did you hear about the hurricane? I slouched further down in my chair and ignored him. Sam was 14 and obsessed with meteorology, to a degree that was honestly concerning. He stood outside with his face upturned whenever it snowed, binged storm chasers at least once a week, and when his homemade weather balloon had failed to get off the ground, he had been inconsolable for weeks. Maria, get off your phone and listen to me! He pitched his voice way down as he said it, copying the way our father would talk whenever he was disappointed. I booped his nose with my middle finger and went back to the pictures of rabbits and top hats I was browsing through. Sam stomped his foot and glared at me, his expression reminiscent of a disgruntled cat. My readings say that there's gonna be a hurricane. Our parents had gotten Sam about a dozen pieces of equipment last week as an apology for having to leave. They worked at the same company and often went on long trips, leaving our uncle to take care of us. Our uncle didn't want anything to do with us, really, but our parents paid him $200 per week, and he was a raging alcoholic who was constantly bumming off people, so he made sure that at least we had food. But most of the time, he disappeared off to wherever he went when he wasn't with us, and we were glad to see him go. The stuff that Sam got was pretty nice, all shiny metal and sturdy structures. I had no idea what any of it was. He had tried to explain it to me once, but I had stopped paying attention when he started talking about barometers. He had set it all up on a hill about a mile from our house, and he called it his laboratory. I was at my laboratory and double-checked everything, and it was still right. There's going to be a hurricane, or at least a really big storm, in 20 minutes. We've got to tell people. I've got to measure it so that everyone knows. He was practically vibrating with tension, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. I glanced out the window, where it was sunny and cloudless. Sure, just sit down, Sam. He gave me the most betrayed look I have ever seen, but he did eventually plop down next to me, grumbling the whole way. Just wait a little bit, and then you'll see. The frantic confidence of before was gone. He seemed unsure. I've lived in a small coastal town in the southeast United States for most of my life, so I'm no stranger to hurricanes. There's always frantic activity right before the storm hits. Boards, or at the very least tape, go over windows. County-provided sandbags piled outside the doors and are strewn haphazardly along the outside walks. 3 days worth of water and battery-powered flashlights are required. Everything was calm outside, the neighborhood and the weather, so I didn't listen to Sam. I should have. We were there for barely 10 minutes before it started. It was just a soft wind at first, a whisper of air against the side of the house, a couple of raindrops flung softly against the window. "See?" Sam said, triumphant. "I told you." I got up to look out the window, discomforted. "Yeah, I guess you did." He leaped up with a twinkle in his eye. "I've got to go record this. I'll be right back, I promise." Without another word, he left before I could stop him, no doubt heading for his laboratory. "Sam, wait a second," I called after him, but he didn't even look back. I sighed and turned away, figuring that he would come back eventually. Half an hour later, Sam wasn't back and the hurricane had hit with full force. The house was shaking with the force of it, and I couldn't shake the worry that Sam had tripped on a rock and was laying unconscious somewhere. I sat there, chewing on my nails with anxiety for far too long before I got up to follow him. If you've never been outside during a real storm, then you're lucky. It's not something I would wish on anyone. The wind battered me with every movement, making me lose my balance again and again. Every single door was open, and every window too, in every direction I looked. There were no cars in the driveways, and the only lights on were the street lamps, bathing everything in a buzzing, sickly yellow. I spun in a circle, searching desperately for any sign of Sam. There was nothing, and I'm not proud of it, but I gave up. I couldn't take the constant drumming of the rain anymore. I told myself that Sam was probably fine, that I'd look for him later, and then I ran for the nearest house. The open door loomed over me, more oppressive than a simple slab of wood should be, but still shoved my way through, too glad to get inside. I rationalized it to myself. Everyone else had probably evacuated. The doors had probably been blown open by the wind. I stepped over the threshold, breathing a preemptive sigh of relief, and the rain didn't stop. It didn't make sense. I was inside, with a roof over my head, but I still felt every drop hit me. They phased through the ceiling like it wasn't even there, leaving me with no shelter. There's this great short story by Ray Bradbury called The Long Rain. It tells the story of 4 men trapped on a planet that never stops raining. I had to read it in school an eternity ago, and at the time, I thought it was stupid. It was just rain. That's what I thought. There's no way it could have been that bad. I know better now. There's an exhaustion that comes with your mind being battered to pieces in your skull by the constant rain. The pounding of it becomes a metronome that is almost impossible to think around. The rhythm of my steps started lining up with each new sheet of rain crashing into me, a brainless march that could have led me over a cliff without me noticing. The only thing inside me was the rain. I walked and walked and walked and walked and walked, and it didn't stop for what felt like days. I was alone the entire time, nothing but me and the pounding of my feet as I kept walking. I don't know how I escaped. I don't remember it. Lucky, probably. Or maybe the hurricane got bored of me. My first memory after is of waking up in the hospital with my parents clutching my hands. I didn't talk for a week except to say one phrase. "Were you in the rain?" I asked them over and over. "Were you in the rain? Were you in the rain?" My parents told me that there was no rain. The last time it rained had been weeks ago, and today had been sunny and temperate. I searched for a sign that the rain had happened, scouring news sites for a single mention of the violent storm that I had almost been lost in. The only sign that anything had gone wrong at all was in Sam's laboratory. I went up the hill as soon as I got back from the hospital, desperate for some sort of proof. I found the equipment broken on the ground. Every single thing was smashed into pieces, pulverized and scattered haphazardly around. My parents were distraught, but they thought it was an act of petty vandalism, and they never believed me when I told them that the storm had done it. They held out hope for Sam for years, but eventually they accepted that he wasn't coming back. They even stopped blaming me for his death eventually. I have never given up hope, and I have never stopped blaming myself. People go missing during every hurricane, every flood. The search is always given up eventually. Once it's obvious that anyone still lost must be dead. They're not though. They're trapped in the storm, like I almost was, like Sam still is, wandering ceaselessly through an endless landscape of rain and wind. Bad weather seems to happen around me more often than before, and I refuse to go out in it. It feels like there's something waiting for me, lurking on the periphery, until it can capture me again.